welcome to all. Before we begin, let me introduce myself. My name is Rabbi Shui Rosenblum, originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I live in Venezuela for the last 26 years and have witnessed many things in 26 years. But I'll start from the end for a moment. I just wanted to clarify for all those who are always following the news. The Jewish community is still very vibrant. We have a minyan every single day, even though now, even during COVID, with all of the proper requirements and taking into consideration the restrictions, but we do have an ongoing minyan. We had a bar mitzvah this past week. We have a school with 130 children, and which is now mainly on Zoom. So Jewish life is alive and well in Caracas, Venezuela. So I thought first I would start by sharing a cute little story, which might bring you into a little bit the spirit of Venezuela. In Venezuela, now everybody has what's called a cédula de identidad, which is your, in Hebrew, that would be called a teudat zahut. It's like an identity card. The United States, people don't, it's more or less like what the equivalence of a license would be, but it's an official government document. So when I moved here in 1995, being that I'm not a Venezuelan, there's a distinction between the cédula de identidad of a Venezuelan and a resident, or somebody who is not from Venezuela. And that is that the non-Venezuelans need, on their cédula, it says your profession, okay? And it's a little bit of a different color as well. So the first time I went to make my cédula de identidad, I went to the government office and they asked me, what is your profession? And I told them, Rabino, which is a rabbi. So on my cédula de identidad, right, it said profesión, right? And then it said Rabino. And this was the same that went on for, every 5 years, I had to renew my cédula, and every time it said Rabino. One time, I think it was like some 15 years ago, when I went to renew my cédula, and they asked me the question, what is your profession? So I told them Rabino. And the woman was looking at, I guess, the list of professions that were valid for print on a cédula, and she told me that that option did not exist. So what are you talking about? And I took out my cédula and I showed her on my cédula that it said Rabino. So she went back and she asked one of her superiors, and after several moments, she came back and she said, no, there's no more Rabino. No, it's no longer an option. And then she said to me like this, and this is what I wanted to share with you. She said, so what do you want to be? Right? And she turned the screen around and she showed me the list of options. I even had the mouse in my hand, right? And at that moment, I could have become a doctor. I could have become a lawyer. I could have basically become anything I wanted. In the end, my cédula now says docente, which means like a teacher. I tell this story just to get you a little bit in the spirit of Venezuela, just to, you understand that it's a very, very interesting country. Many different, one of the difficult things I think for a foreigner to learn while living here, and therefore to explain as well to someone who's not living here. When I came here, I had to learn a new language, but the new language is a technicality. You learn the same thing you say in English and Spanish, but to learn a new culture, a new way of life, a new way of doing things, that's a whole different world. And that really is, I think, one of the beautiful things that you could see about Chabad are all over the world, because you have Chabad representatives living in literally every single place in the world, but they don't just live there, they become a part of that community, a part of that culture. They understand the culture, they understand the people, they understand their community, they understand their ways of working, and they operate within the framework of the community that they live in. And this has been my experience. Venezuela is a very, very beautiful country. As I said, it's a beautiful Jewish community. I heard in the pregame show, I heard that somebody here is from Venezuela, actually said that they lived in Margarita Islands. I have been in Margarita quite a few times as well. There's a Jewish presence there till today, a small one. There's a synagogue. There's actually a mikveh even in the synagogue in Margarita Islands. There's a synagogue in a city called Maracaibo, which is a little bit distant from Caracas. There's a synagogue in Valencia, which is 2 hours away from Caracas. And there's, I would say, the main Jewish concentration is in Caracas, Venezuela, is in Caracas. At one time, Maracaibo managed to get up to the amount of, I would say, maybe some close to 2,000 Jewish residents, but today it's a very, very small community. Several members left. It's a struggling community, as Margarita was at one time, probably when the person who spoke earlier was a bigger community. Today it's much smaller. Most of the Jews are now concentrated in Caracas, Venezuela. And we had a program throughout many years where we would send our yeshiva students, because we had a yeshiva here. We still do it in theory, just because of COVID. Right now it's temporarily suspended, because you can't travel in and out, it's hard. So right now the yeshiva is not operating, but we had a yeshiva, actually, a rabbinical college, and we would send our students once a year to visit the whole length of Venezuela. And I would say that there's maybe some 250 Jews spread out throughout the rest of the country, little patches here in Puerto La Cruz, and in near Coro. There's different cities where you can find 1 or 2 or 3, but mainly you have the concentrations, a little bit more, which is in Maracaibo, in Margarita, and in Valencia. Beyond that, it's really like very sporadic. Mainly the Jewish community is centered around Caracas, Venezuela. Okay, so that's a little bit of an overview of the present situation in Venezuela. So I wanted to share with you maybe some a little bit of history first, okay? A little bit of history about Venezuela. And I'm going to share with you, I had a chance a little bit before I got on to a little bit of a presentation here. Let me share with you. Okay, so as you see, this is what I was telling you a little bit about before, just to make it a little bit more real. In the background, you could see a picture of Caracas. This is what you can see very close to my home. It's a beautiful, beautiful country. We're in a valley. We're surrounded by mountains. There's maybe some places in Israel that look like this, actually. Okay, so here, as you see, my cedula used to say Rabino, you see? Can you read that? It's a little bit small, but you can see I circled it for you. And now it's actually changed, and now says docente. It has changed. So over the years, this is what Venezuela has become. Okay, so this is a small, general map of Venezuela. You're seeing the different parts of Venezuela, and let's talk a little bit of history. I'm no historian on Venezuelan history, and probably all the information that I'll tell you about the past history, you could find it as easy as I could. Right? I could tell you more on a personal level about the present history, but I do want to share with you some of the past history. So in the 17th century, it's known that there was already a very small Jewish presence in these 3 places, in Caracas, in Maracaibo, and a place called Tucacas, which is very close to Coro. Okay, so these are the places where there was, I didn't even find it on this particular map, but I know it's close to Coro. Now, what these Jews what they left is really up until recently very little. There's absolutely no records, but it's known that there was a presence here, a presence of Jews already in the 17th century. Somebody had mentioned Marranos. It's very likely that there was many Marranos in this vicinity as well. It's very interesting. There's a place in Venezuela which is called Trujillo, and over there it was discovered, even up until recently, that when it comes around August, September, October time, they build little structures, things that they do, customs that they do that are very similar to Jewish customs, which obviously remain probably back from that time. Now, Coro and Tucacas, that was the natural place for Jews to arrive because there was a presence. As you can see, Curacao is very close to Venezuela, right? Here you see the ABC Islands. That's Aruba next to it, Bonaire and Curacao. Curacao had a Jewish presence from early on. And being that there was such close proximity to Venezuela, right? And in particular, you could see Coro is very close. Now, I wanted to just mention this because there was a fascinating thing happened in 2016. A mikveh was actually discovered in 2016, right? There was the discovery in the home of an ancient family. Senor was the name of the family in Coro. The building housed the Museo Alberto Enriquez, right? And when they were remodeling it, the state government was remodeling it. They found a structure dating back from around 1774. Okay, so this was a mikveh that they found. Here you can see the rabbi who went to visit it. He's standing inside of the mikveh and he's explaining to the government officials what a mikveh is, right? So according to reports, the structure is the only one of its kind excavated in Venezuela and possibly in America, way back from 1774. So really, there had not been any sort of record of the Jewish presence, but here you do have a clear indication of a Jewish presence dating back all the way to 1774. Actually, a mikveh, and that's actually, it's an incredible thing. It was very, very exciting to find this and to discover that this is here in Venezuela. Many of you, I'm sure, when you were in Israel, you might have had the chance to visit Masada. And over there on Masada, you also find a mikveh. A mikveh is a basic necessity for a Jewish community, for Jews to have in order to keep the family purity. And mikvahs have been discovered literally all over the world, but to find one in a place like this was a very, very exciting moment. So that's a little piece of history in Venezuela. This is history that was actually discovered only recently. In June 20th, 2016 is when this became public, when this was known, okay? Not so long ago. Now, there's also another Jewish connection, okay? Simon Bolivar, who's the founder, let's say like the George Washington of Venezuela, right? The father figure, the founding fathers of Venezuela. During the turn of the 19th century, it's known that he had a connection with Jews in Curacao. Right here, there's actually a stamp, which I put on here, a stamp, which officially it's part of the Venezuela postage stamp, which has Simon Bolivar and Mordechai Ricardo near the Pentagon in Curacao. Okay, he also stayed in the home of other Jews as well. So you have a very strong connection to Jews even in the very founding moments of this country. Then you have a very famous the cemetery in Coro, which was founded in 1832. Mr. Joseph Curiel and his wife, Deborah Levy Maduro, they bought a plot of land near the city to bury their daughter Hannah. And there is a Jewish cemetery there up until today. It's actually a heritage site and is considered to be a historic site. So here you're seeing some of the symbols, right? Some of the Jewish connection to the very important symbols in Venezuela, such as the founding father, a mikveh in the thing, here you have a cemetery. This is something which many people have, like to visit. It's a really historical site. Okay, now moving on to more modern times. Now I'm not talking to you from having read or heard or investigated. Now I'm talking to you a little bit more about the structure and which I think would be unique to the Venezuelan Jewish community. Okay, the Venezuelan community really begins to flourish and take off. It's really a very young Jewish community, aside from these, isolated and small presence that there was, but there was never like a significant presence that left any, large, any records of any, major impact. We don't have all that information today, but I would say somewhere in the early 1900s, the Sephardic Jewish community starts becoming significant here. Okay, when Jews come from North Africa, I would say the bulk of the Sephardic Jewish community is more the Moroccan Sephardim. There was also later on, there came from other places, from Egypt, from Syria, from Lebanon, from different places as well. But the main Jewish Sephardic presence, and basically that's already as early as 1920. We already have what's called the Asociación Israelita de Venezuela, which is basically this Sephardic Jewish community already set up. They already have a synagogue. They're already conducting religious practices. And then a little bit later, after World War II, the 1950s, then the Ashkenazic Jewish community really becomes very significant here in Venezuela. Just so you should have a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about, so you can see the numbers. In 1891, we're talking about 247 Jews. In 1917, there's 475 Jews. In 1926, there's 882 Jews. In 1950, there's already 6,000 Jews in Venezuela. And in 1990, there's 25,000 Jews. Okay, so you could see how how it progressed. So from 1950 to 1990 is really where the really strong buildup of the Jewish community, and it begins really to make a very, very strong and important impact here in Venezuela. First of all, let's talk about the infrastructure in and of itself. Why is it unique? It's unique because the Ashkenazic and Sephardic communities, okay, even though each one has its own synagogue, each one has its own cemetery, and each one follows its own customs and prays according to its rites, right? Nevertheless, you don't find this very commonly, that it really is one united community. And what unites it? How do they manage to do this? So really, I would tell you that there's two major elements. First of all, there's a club here, which is called Hebraica, right? It's a club which is basically a club which was founded together, basically under the auspices of both communities. And this, what basically in the club is beautiful. It's a beautiful space. It's like you drive up a road and you have all the installations of that anybody could dream of. There's sports fields, there's restaurants, there's playing field. I mean, there's everything. There's classes and whatever. Somebody you could basically. It's a city. It's a little city for the Jewish community, and this created a space where all Jews, Sephardic and Ashkenazic, come together, and they can be in a safe place, because that is somewhat of an issue, as more or less over the times. It's not a place, Venezuela has its security issues always, and it's not typical that you would just go to a regular park with your kids and just leave them on their own, running around and playing on the swings and the slide. That's not the kind of thing you would normally do in Venezuela, right? So here you have a space where basically on a Sunday the whole community can come together. And really, it's an unbelievable space that has become very popular it's been popular over the years. It also most recently served as like almost like a refuge. 2 years ago, there was a huge power outage here in Venezuela that lasted for like almost 3 days. There was no electricity. It was a scary moment, I would say. And the club has generators, and they have everything set up like for a situation like this, and it became actually almost like a refuge, a place where people would hang out, a place where people could take a shower, or where they could really, okay. Now, the other thing is that there is a main school. There was actually, that has changed over the time. I'll talk about that in a moment. But for many, many years, there was one school. The school is called Herzl Bialik, right? Morali Lucis. And it's a school that when I came to Venezuela in 1995, I believe there was like at the time, like 2,500 children enrolled in the school system, right? From kindergarten all the way through high school. Huge school. I mean, several buildings and, housed, very, very, very well-run school, very recognized in the country. There, it's also one school. Ashkenazim and Sephardim attend the same school. Everybody goes to the same school. And this eventually morphed into another organization, which is called the CAI, which is let's say the umbrella organization, which brings the two together, which the president of each of the organizations takes turns presiding over that organization. And therefore, there's a very beautiful united front and a community here in Venezuela. And even though you would think, you hear Venezuela and you would think, how many synagogues? Who could guess how many synagogues there are in Venezuela, in Caracas, which is only really one area. We're not talking about, it's a small area. But in this small area, there's 18 synagogues. There's 18 synagogues. But it's common that somebody could pray in one synagogue one week and then another one another week. It's a very nice and united community. It's almost not, you almost do not find unaffiliated Jews in Venezuela. If they're part of the community, in other words, everybody has something to do with the community. Now, let's talk for a moment about Chabad Lubavitch in Venezuela. Chabad Lubavitch comes to Venezuela in 1975. In 1975, Rabbi and Mrs. Moshe and Chaya Perman are the first permanent shluchim to Venezuela. They happen to be my in-laws as well. They come here to Venezuela, to already quite established community, right? With a nice infrastructure, ready with a school, with synagogues. And they arrive here at the behest of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Now, there was actually a Lubavitch presence, Chabad presence here in Venezuela from the 1950s already. They were very regularly being visited here, but never a permanent presence. There was rabbis from Chabad that came to visit here. There were students that came to visit here and visit the Jewish people here. And the Rebbe in 1975 decided to set up a permanent presence here in Venezuela. And when they came, obviously, it was a very big challenge. It was a very big challenge to come into an established community and to begin to work within that framework. Now, obviously, people, I guess, looked at them with somewhat of suspicion. You know what I mean? What do you want here? What are you gonna bring to the table here? But it's really beautiful because what they did bring to the table is they started to have a more personal connection with a lot of the Jewish community, like whereas the institutional kind of relationship sometimes that big institutions have could be a little more distant. Here there was they started a summer camp. They started, a yeshiva, actually. Even then, they brought down yeshiva students that would study one-on-one with people, a mezuzah, and then they started bringing, shmura matzah on Pesach and a lulav and esrog on Sukkot. So that was like items that you would maybe find at the synagogue, and here all of a sudden it became, let's say, something on a more personal level, but very, very much integrated into the community as part of the community, right? Working together with the community. I myself came some 20 years after that. And at that time, we had moved a little bit before that, not yet to our beautiful building where we are now. I'm going to show you a few pictures of our center here that I'm sitting in right now. This is actually a building that won some architectural prizes in Latin America. It's a beautiful, beautiful Chabad house, Chabad center, and there's actually a very interesting story to its founding, because at the time that my in-laws came to Venezuela, the main concentration of Ashkenazic Jews was in a place which is called San Bernardino, right? And the main concentration of the Sephardic Jews was in a place called La Florida. It remains that way even till today, that the main concentration there's a large concentration of Sephardic Jews there. But the Ashkenazim, over the years, have moved east. They've moved all the way to the east, to where we live. But Chabad was the first one actually to establish themselves in the east, and this was actually based on the Rebbe's advice to one of the members of the synagogue that had a very close connection with Lubavitcher Rebbe. In a private audience with him, the Rebbe asked him to draw a map of Caracas, which he did, and to place on the map where the Jews are living. And the Rebbe suggested that they start thinking of setting something up in the more east of Caracas. And being that we had this inside information, I guess you could call it, so Chabad established itself well before it. And today, actually, the other communities, several years later, have also established themselves here. Now, let me see. Here's a little bit, some pictures that you can see. This is the outer part of the building. Here's our synagogue here on the bottom left. That's a picture of the building, of the inside of the synagogue. This is the lobby. There's a mural that we have. This is our daily sanctuary over here that you're seeing to the right. This is the mikveh. I only, just so you should, this is not something that you would maybe expect to encounter in Caracas, Venezuela. You might think that there's like a little, no, it's actually a very beautiful building. And since that moment, a couple of years ago, we also now have our own generator, our own power, which could serve as a refuge to the Jews around here. Were that to happen, again, we have actually two mikvahs here, one for men or one for women. We have classes here. I'll show you a little bit of some of the activities here. This is over here, this on the top here, this is when the chief rabbi recently, 2 years ago, came to visit. Okay, that's Rabbi Perman over there to the right. That's myself. To the left, that's the chief Sephardic rabbi, Rabbi Yitzchak Cohen. Over here, we had in the synagogue, we had a concert. Now we also here on that's Hanukkah that you're seeing there at a plaza not far from our home. We also had a magazine that was very, very well known and accepted in the community. It was called Rumbo a tu Judaísmo. Many of the regular Chabad activities that were done. And today, basically over the last 25, 26 years that I'm here, basically the community has obviously dropped in its population, because at one point we had here, as you saw, probably somewhere in the range of 25,000 Jews. Today, it's estimated that there's more like 6,000 or 7,000 Jews, but the infrastructure of the community has remained, and all of the community services remain. There's restaurants, there's a kosher bakery, there's a kosher meat stores, there's whatever a Jew would need to live a good Jewish life is still, thank God, present here in Venezuela. In addition to that, obviously, due to the difficulties, the community is very united in helping all those in need, right? There's a lot of social programs for those who are needy, those who have hard time, with getting food or medical assistance or medicines, which that hardship can express itself either in a financial way or also just in the getting the stuff that you need, because it's a country where getting things is a challenge. But the community, I would say, largely lives in somewhat of a bubble, and we protect each other. And we're also, there's social programs also servicing outside of the Jewish community as well. And that, I would say, is somewhat of an overview of the Jewish community of Venezuela and of Chabad's presence here. If somebody has some questions or wants to ask something or discuss anything that we've talked about, I'm more than willing to hear your comments.
That was very, very interesting. Thank you so much. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions now. Maybe I can get started. You alluded before to concerns about security. Are those the same concerns that other Venezuelan communities have, or is it specific to Jews?
No, I would say that the issue is not, for the most part, the issue here is not a problem of anti-Semitism, although there have been little incidents over the years, but that's not really the main issue. The issue has become over the years one more of class, right? The upper class versus, creating like this divide between the classes. Now, the Jewish people are definitely belong to the middle upper class, and even if they're not, they're perceived as such, right? And therefore, whatever anybody of the upper class would suffer or would be under any kind of threat, we share that threat, right? And we have the additional feature of being Jewish, which at certain times has shown, there's been incidents, but for the most part, that's not an issue.
Very interesting. So let's throw it open to the floor. Whoever has a question, you can unmute yourself. Just press the unmute button on your computer. If you're on the phone, you can press star and then 6, and then just go ahead and ask your question.
You indicate that the economy of the Jewish community has not suffered much as a result of the economic turbulence in the country generally. Venezuela was a pearl for the years until the revolution, or whatever they call it there, in the ouster of the government. And you're saying that had no impact upon the Jewish community?
No, I didn't say that it had no impact. It definitely had a very big impact. As I mentioned, a lot of the Jewish community has left. That by itself has had a big impact. A. B, yes, any impact to the country impacts us as well. But definitely, I would say, in a sense, because, the community organized itself and receives help from outside and all things, so maybe affected to a lesser degree. That's what I would say.
Are there particular professions or, occupations that are more common among the Jewish community there?
I mean, in its good time, you literally had everything here. You had professionals, and that's something which I didn't mention. I mean, you have very famous Jewish Venezuelan doctors and lawyers and people of, culture. But unfortunately, I mean, one of the difficulties that Venezuela has gone through, and therefore has very much affected us, is really to do any kind of business or any kind of profession in this kind of setting, you have to be very, very talented, right? It's a very complex kind of atmosphere, which doesn't make it like, you learn to live under all circumstances. So you see the Jewish resilience in all this, because it's already been like some 5 years where doing business, regular conventional business, right, has been almost impossible. That doesn't mean that people don't figure it out or do things. And, recently, actually, the last, I would say, 2 years and more the last year, the economy has become totally dollarized, which ironically has, for some people, become, a new opportunity. But while the economy was using the local currency, which was like holding a bad stock, right? So you had no idea, you couldn't like really purchase anything outside and then know at what price you could sell it here in order to, and by the time you brought it in, the local price was, it was impossible. We definitely did deal with a lot of the issues that are here, but what I'm saying is largely, the community has remained, intact. I mean, the community is still functioning. It was a community that up till I would say probably 8-9 years ago never needed any kind of assistance from outside. It was a community that actually offered, had been very, very big in donating to Israel, right? And I think that one of the things that happened is that that's no longer the case. Now, it depends a lot on help from outside, both people that had previously lived here, who now live outside, right? And others as well, and institutions and federations and all kinds of, it's not something that was common here before. And today it is.
So if I could, you mentioned, and you began by telling us a story about how your profession of Rabbino was taken off the officially acceptable lists of professions. Why was that the case?
I don't know if it was just targeting Rabbinos, and it could be that they took off some of the other titles as well, but these kind of governments, I guess, tend to like, like things less, specific, you know what I mean? Religious. You could put on your, if you would like, one of the options you could put on your cellular would just be religious. Okay. Yeah, I don't know the exact reason, but I didn't take it bad, and there's a lot of things, there's a lot of issues which we don't know for sure the reason, and also I tend not to get too deeply involved, especially in any kind of public forum, to speak about these kind of things. I'd rather speak more about like the history and the general situation in Venezuela. That's the best way to live here.
How many from families do you have there? And do the people of Caracas, are they very interested in promoting their personal growth in Judaism?
The religious frum community has really, really grown over the years. I'm saying you have, I can't tell you the exact numbers, but I could tell you that in the Sephardic community in particular, you have at least, I would say, some 50 or 60 frum families, at least. And we also, the difference between the Ashkenazic and the Chabad community is that most of them, after they became frum, they left Venezuela. So, but there's a large contingency as well. In other words, living in Miami and living in Panama, living in Israel, very, I mean, it's a very traditional community. And I would tell you, even today, till today, if you go to Miami, most of the daily minyan of Shacharis that you go to in any synagogue in Miami, I would say the majority of the minyan is made up of Venezuelans. It's typical. Maybe there's also sometimes you have some Colombians or Israelis, but it's not in the average daily minyan. I'm not talking about Shabbat. You don't tend to find Americans attending the daily service like that. So the tradition and this respect towards tradition is very strong.
Do you have any much of a tourist presence in Venezuela, or is that not something which is common?
I mean, Venezuela could in theory be like a tourist paradise. It's a beautiful country. I mean, there's parts of this country that are unbelievable. There's Canaima, there's La Gran Sabana, Margarita Islands. I mean, you have so many beautiful places here. You have one of the most beautiful beaches in the world you have in Venezuela. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful country, but no, there's almost no tourists. Why? For several reasons. First of all, the government never really developed that industry. They never really developed it. So you have like the places, but you don't really have, it's not so well developed to receive tourists. That's number one. Number two, tourists like to go to a place that they know that there's safety, right, in general. And we don't have like the fame for being the safest place, right? And so tourists would tend to, now add to that nowadays that a US citizen needs a visa, which he literally cannot get because there is no Venezuelan consulate in the United States that could issue a visa because of another, whatever, internal thing, because there was in Venezuela, if you look and you ask on Google, who is the president of Venezuela, you're going to get two names are going to come up. Now, this is a whole story that basically over the last 3 years, I don't want to get into that either, but the fact is that the one who can't really issue visas is because the United States recognizes somebody who doesn't really have real power. So therefore, all the consulates in the United States cannot issue anything. They can't issue a passport, they can't issue a visa, they can't do anything. So basically it's just like a symbol, right? So if a US citizen wants to get a visa to come to Venezuela, they need to travel to a country that does recognize the government, and they need to spend whatever time it takes to get a visa, which could be from two weeks to 2 months, right? While they stay there and wait for their passport to come back with the visa and find out if you were issued a visa or not. It's complicated. So really, I mean, you could, if you're a Canadian citizen, you could visit here without a visa. A US citizen up until 6 years ago could visit here without a visa as well. I guess European citizens can visit without a visa, but so there's countries that need a visa, which they can't get, right? So yeah, so it's very difficult. Even if you are of the adventurous kind and you would like to come to Venezuela, right? It's not easy.
Are you able to travel outside the country?
You could, but due to sanctions against Venezuela as of like 2 years ago, you cannot travel. There's no direct flight from Venezuela to the United States, not even one, which means to say that if you want to travel to the United States, you have to travel to another country, and then from there you travel to the States. Now, add to that COVID, right? And it makes travel very complicated.
Speaking of COVID, how badly has it impacted on the country of Venezuela?
Well, here you see sometimes like the other side of the coin, because I mean, it's starting, I think it's like everything in Venezuela, it's lagging behind. You know what I mean? In March, April, May, and June, I think there was no COVID here at all, right? Then it started, right? And all of the, here we are. Never, we take care of ourselves like in any other country. I think it's picking up a little bit now, but the other side of the coin of the very little air travel into Venezuela already for a year before this whole thing is that there's really there's no entry from outside. So it doesn't propagate, I don't think, the same way as in a country which is receiving citizens from all different countries, right?
What about the healthcare? I mean, if someone were to get COVID, what are the hospitals there like? What's the healthcare like in general in Venezuela?
So, I mean, it used to be like many things here, it used to be excellent healthcare. It was one of the best in Latin America. Excellent healthcare. And obviously, I mean, there's still a remnant of that, but the problem here is that there's no new generation of doctors because all the young people leave, right? So all the doctors are already, of a certain age and up, and so we're still, benefiting from what it was, but yes, it definitely took a hit. But ironically now, because it's become dollarized, right? So therefore, I guess today, you could get things that you couldn't get a couple of years ago. You couldn't get anything here. Now you could get it. You basically have to pay sometimes triple or 4 times the price of what you would pay in the United States, right? But you could get it. And because there's also a system, of shipping things to Venezuela, which you can pretty much bring whatever you want, but it's expensive. It's very expensive, so it makes it difficult to get sometimes.
Rabbi Rosenblum, if people want to send you an email or send you a thank you note or a donation, how can they reach you?
We have our website, right, is Chabad, but in the Venezuelan way, which is the Latin way, which is the Jabadve, which is Chabad VE, Venezuela with the J, not with the CH, right? .com. And you'll see there the option if to both contact us or if interested. There's a word that don't think it says done. It says done. Done means donate. It doesn't, but there's an option there as well. And I could leave you, my email. I think you have a way to contact me. So anybody, I guess, could contact you in order to get in contact with me.
Fantastic. It's really been fascinating. And we want to wish you a lot of success, bracha, tzlacha, should all be with gesund. And thank you so much for giving us your time so generously.
Okay, sure.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
sorry, Rabbi, I have a question.
Okay.
It says Chabad with J,
Correct.
JABAD.VE.
No, JABADVE.com.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Could I say something?
Yeah,
Please.
sure.
I wanted to say that my parents came to Venezuela with a visa from Frankfurt in 1940.
Oh, wow.
And then my father, before the Lubavitch came, he set up a Shomer Shabbos minyan.
Oh, wow. I know the Shomer Shabbos minyan. What's your name? I'm sorry. I can't see who's talking.
Ellis Pollock.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And my parents' name, my maiden name is Gabel.
Uh-huh.
My father, Pinkus Gabel, alav hashalom.
Sure. I've heard his name mentioned many times here. Very nice.
He, of course, we knew Rabbi Weinberg, alav hashalom, Rabbi Tenenbaum, alav hashalom, who came regularly and were able to eat at a kosher home.
Wow.
And they
That's
came
beautiful.
yearly. I benefited, heard the nigunim, and they spoke with me. And my father started a mikvah in his business, but then Efri Steinmetz, alav hashalom, I'm sure you know.
Yeah, he was the person, Efri Steinmetz was the person who I was referring to, who the Rebbe had told him to draw that map.
I know. No, we were very close. I still am in touch with Judy Silber. I hope that she's watching. And I have tons of correspondence. My father and Rabbi Weinberg, Rabbi Tenenbaum. He would pick him up from the airport, bring him. But my father wanted, it was too early in the 50s. The Lubavitchers were not ready to come because my father wanted a Rav to come with the family, and he got Rav Karelitz to come, alav hashalom, with his family, but they stayed 2 years, and then, this was the nephew of the Chazon Ish. And then another Rabbi Knepfler came from Chile. But then it wasn't until Efri, he donated his house.
Correct.
Which I was in, to the Lubavitchers. But I left in 64, 566.
Rabbi Jaworski, you hired the wrong person to tell people about Venezuela, I think.
What? I enjoyed very much. But yeah,
Yeah. So your name is Mrs. Polak, yeah. So
Yeah.
she could tell. She's telling us firsthand about Venezuela that I never knew. I heard about, but I wasn't here then. So do you know
well,
Rabbi?
here in Chicago.
Do you know Rabbi and Mrs. Perman? Did you ever meet them?
No, I heard about them, but here.
I actually have a sister that lives in Chicago in Skokie, so yeah.
Who else? Shalichim in New York. I think I spoke to someone at a chasana, and I forget now. But any others or cats? I forget, and I should have prepared this. But here we were my in-laws used to go. My husband used to daven Yamim Naraim, be the Tefillah for years at Rabbi Schusterman's shul.
Oh wow.
And we still go to Rabbi Shanowitz's shul where my husband is about Tefillah there, Rosh Hashanah, not yet this year, but hope COVID dies away soon.
Okay, that was
It's
very
very
nice to hear.
exciting for me, very exciting for me to hear you. And wish you
Very
well
nice.
for the Caracas community.
Yeah.
Rabbi, thank you so much. I live here in Chicago, and I was the Morah from one of the Perman's girls. My name is Sar Shalom.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Ah.
so please send them regards.
So I know many people from the Sar Shalom family.
Yeah, my father was the oldest one. My father was the uncle.
Oh wow. So
Yeah.
we're finding a lot of Venezuelan connection here.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
It's a small world.
But it was very good talk. I really enjoy it. It brings me a lot of memories. I left Venezuela not because all the balagan, for other reasons I left, but it was an amazing memories to bring.
Yeah, it's really it still continues to be a beautiful place and a beautiful and Am Yisrael Chai, wherever we are. Here we are.
Nahon.
Right.
So please send regards to the Perman family,
Sure.
please,
Okay. All
from
the best.
Rivka.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you again.